Hi, I'm Eric Gall. I want to dive into something truly empowering for families who have a loved one with a developmental disability, and that's self-determination programs for adults with disabilities. You might have heard of other terms like individualized funding or self-directed services, depending on where you live, but we're talking about the same thing here. Different places call it different names, and these programs vary a bit, but the heart of it is the same. For example, there's the self-determination program, or SDP, in California. There's self-direction in the state of New York. There's passport funding through Developmental Services, or the DSO, in Ontario, Canada. But really, at the heart of it, self-determination puts your loved one and your family in the driver's seat when it comes to your loved one's support and funding. It gives you the power to choose who supports your loved one and how your loved one is supported when those supports happen, and how they want, or how you want, your loved one's day to look, so you can structure it in a more meaningful way. So for families, this means more flexibility, creativity, and more say in crafting a life that truly fits your loved one with a disability, their needs, and their dreams. But, and this is important, it also means taking on more responsibility and more management of these programs. So I'll break it down into exactly what self-determination or individualized funding, self-directed services means, and how they work, where you might go about finding it or starting the process of getting access to these types of programs. I'll talk about the pros and the cons to help you start to think about, is it the right fit for your loved one and your family? So I'm just going to call it self-determination moving forward, but know that I'm talking about all of these sorts of programs. So what exactly is self-determination? Well, in disability services, this means a funding model where the person with a disability takes the lead in directing their supports, or with family support, instead of traditionally where a government agency would be assigned to your loved one and assigning services, assigning supporters, and determining the support your loved ones receives. So that decision-making power with self-determination is shifted from the government and an agency over to your loved one or the family. So here's how it typically works. You would receive a personalized budget. Often it's determined by needs and it's deficit-based, which can be challenging. We're not going to get into that in this video. You get to decide how to spend it. Now, there's often rules and regulations around that funding and how it can be spent, but there's a lot more freedom to have choice and control over how those funds are spent. If you're hiring people, you hire the supporters who will work with your loved one, or you can possibly work with pick your own agency and pick your own supporters from that agency. So again, giving you more control. And you shape the life that reflects your loved one's real goals, not just what's available. So often we're stuck as families just trying to get whatever services we can, and they might actually be a fit for our loved one. So the core idea here of self-determination is more control, more choice, more flexibility. Now, to really appreciate self-determination, let's contrast it a little bit more with traditional agency-based support, where this is usually the government contracts an agency. That agency then hires the staff, the agency assigns the workers. You get the staff and the hours that they have available, or your loved one can participate in the programs that they have and the scheduling that they have. And this can work for families, but many families run into the downsides of these programs and frustrations because they provide little control over who's supporting your loved one. There's frequent changes and turnover in those supporters. If it's a program-based, they don't really offer a match for who your loved one is, what their interests are, what your loved one's needs are, helping them actually to create a fulfilling life. There's rigid schedules that don't flex with your loved one's life. And your loved one's often feeling like they're squeezed into what's available rather than building a life that is the best for them. So the plus side with the traditional kind of government run services is that the agency or the government manages the payroll, the training, the supervision, the scheduling. So for families that are stretched thin, that can be helpful. But that relief comes at the cost or the expense of the control and customization that self-direction provides, or self-determination. So self-determination flips that model. Instead of fitting your loved one into agency programs, you design the supports around your loved one's goals. So the pros of this is it gives you a lot more control. You pick those people surrounding your loved one, leading to better matches and trust. It gives you more flexibility, so supports happen when your loved one actually needs them. You can have a better fit, right, with your loved one and the supporter, or your loved one and their interests. So you can tailor things directly to your loved one's goals, whether that's employment or exploring interests or support needs that your loved one has. You also can use funds more creatively. So depending on the program rules, you might be able to support your loved one to access classes, memberships, transportation, all of those sorts of things, which can be a big upside. So this is why many families are choosing these self-determination or individualized funding models, and they're seeing real growth in their loved one, and it can lead to better outcomes. Of course, there's challenges, right? And I want to cover the challenges because they're important. The biggest one that I'm seeing with families is more management. So managing the funds, hiring, scheduling, sometimes those things fall in the family. Now, you can potentially get support like a bookkeeper, or even hiring a part-time support coordinator or a agency to help you with those sorts of things, depending on the program. But often the responsibility is held by the family. It can be overwhelming at first. If you're in an agency or government services type model and switching to a self-determination program, it can feel like a big adjustment taking all of that on, especially at first. So there's that adjustment period. Things often get ironed out and you get a smooth process as you move forward, but the initial adjustment can be challenging. Recruiting and keeping good workers can be challenging. You need to ensure that you follow the rules and regulations of the self-direction or self-determination, individualized funding, however that's outlaid. And the last point that I want to make here is with self-determination, I think actually always, but especially with self-determination, life planning is super important, because without a clear life plan, it becomes uncertain the direction that you're going, right? How can you best use those supports? How can you best use the funding to help your loved one live into their best life? So having a clear life plan is essential. So now you might be thinking, is self-determination right for my loved one? Is it right for my family? Well, there's some questions you can ask. Do you want more control over who supports your loved one? Do you want supports that match your loved one's goals? Are you ready to take on some of the management? Do you have, or do you want to create a life plan? So if your answer is yes to those questions, or you're willing to do those things for the benefits of a self-determination or self-direction program, then self-determination might be a great fit for you. So getting started usually starts with a clear vision, a life plan, because without one, it's really easy for supports to shape your loved one's life instead of those supports helping your loved one live into their best life. So to get started on that, I've got my free life planning 101 guide. You can scroll down below this video and click download and get your free copy. Because with that strong customized life plan, you can do a better job directing and managing support workers. You can match supports to real goals that you have in your life plan. You can use funding more creatively to help your loved one live into their best life and live into their life plan. You can avoid wasting time and energy and resources on unhelpful activities. You can build consistent routines that boost your loved one's independence and their connection to community. Again, if you haven't created a life plan yet, or you want to update a life plan that you've done a few years ago, I invite you to go down below and download my Life Planning 101 guide. It lays out your first steps clearly and gently, so you're not doing this alone. So to take your next steps when it comes to self-determination programs, self-direction programs, individualized funding, you need to learn your local program requirements. Every region has its own eligibility rules, application project, budget limits, spending guidelines. So things you want to start by knowing is, what is a program called in your region? You can Google search that. Who do you need to contact? Maybe you already have an administrator contact, but if you don't, figure out who that is. What are the basic steps and requirements to register or get access to it? And you want to ask them maybe how long the process takes. But those are some good questions to go ahead and figure out. So this knowledge helps you steer clear of surprises and design the supports that fit your loved one. If you want help mapping out your loved one's best life and figuring out the best supports, I invite you to, again, go ahead and download your free copy of the Life Planning 101 guide below. I'm Eric Gall. Together, let's take a small step forward.